This unpredictable cold millionaire John Carter rejected all ladies, until he saw a nurse make his grandfather smile before he passed away. John Carter could buy anything, except the sound echoing from his grandfather's hospital room. Laughter. Real, genuine laughter from a man who had days to live. The billionaire who'd coldly rejected countless beautiful women suddenly found himself captivated by the nurse creating this miracle. She wasn't trying to impress him with her looks or charm his wallet. She was simply making a dying man's final moments beautiful. Have you ever met someone whose kindness completely changed how you see the world? Drop a comment and tell us about that life-changing moment. The rain hammered against the hospital window like angry fists. John Carter stood in the hallway, his $1,000 suit soaked through, water still dripping from his dark hair. He'd run from his car. Actually run. Something he hadn't done since he was 12. His phone buzzed. Another call from his secretary. Another meeting he was missing. Another $1 million deal slipping through his fingers while he stood here, frozen. "Mr. Carter?" A soft voice cut through his panic. "Are you family?" He turned. A nurse stood there, clipboard in hand, eyes kind but tired. She was young, maybe late 20s, with skin the color of warm honey and hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Nothing fancy. Nothing that should have made him notice her. But something about the way she looked at him. Like she could see right through his expensive armor. "I'm his grandson," John managed. The words felt strange in his mouth. When was the last time he'd said that? When was the last time he'd even thought of William as family instead of just obligation? The nurse nodded. "Room 304. He's been asking for you." John's chest tightened. "How long does he have?" "Not long." She touched his arm gently. "But he's comfortable. That's what matters now." John stared at her hand on his sleeve. Such a simple touch. He couldn't remember the last time someone had touched him without wanting something. Money. Power. Access to his world. "What's your name?" he asked. "Claire." She smiled, and something cracked inside him. "And don't worry about the suit. Rain happens to all of us." She walked away, her soft-soled shoes silent on the polished floor. John watched her go, something stirring in his chest that he didn't recognize. Or maybe he did recognize it, and that scared him more. He'd built his fortune on reading people, on knowing their price, their weakness, their angle. But Claire, she'd looked at him like he was just a man. A worried grandson. Not the John Carter who owned half the city's skyline. Taking a shaky breath, he walked toward room 304. Toward the one person who'd loved him before he had money. Before he had walls. Before he'd learned that love was just another transaction waiting to happen. His hand froze on the door handle. What if William didn't recognize him? What if he'd waited too long? What if? "You coming in, or you gonna stand there all day looking pretty?" William's voice, rough but amused, drifted through the partially open door. John almost smiled. Almost. He stepped inside. What do you think drives someone to push away everyone who tries to love them? Have you ever met someone who seemed to have everything but was actually empty inside? Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. The man in the hospital bed looked nothing like the giant from John's memories. William Carter had once been 6 feet of pure strength, hands calloused from building his own construction business from nothing. Now he was paper-thin, lost in white sheets, but his eyes still held that familiar spark. "Look what the storm dragged in," William wheezed, but there was warmth there. Love that John didn't deserve. John sat in the plastic chair beside the bed, expensive suit out of place in the sterile room. "I'm sorry I..." "Stop." William's hand moved slowly across the blanket toward him. "You're here now. That's what counts." But John couldn't stop. The words poured out like blood from a wound. "I should have come sooner. Should have called more. Should have." Johnny. The old nickname hit him like a punch to the gut. "You think I don't know why you stayed away?" John's throat closed up. Of course William knew. The old man had always seen through him. "Your mother's accident," William continued softly. "You were 16. Scared to lose anyone else. So you decided not to love anyone else." The machines beeped steadily. Rain still drummed against the window. John felt exposed, like his skin had been peeled away. It worked, didn't it? John's voice came out harsh. Built my empire. Never needed anyone. William's laugh turned into a cough. Empire of what? Glass and steel. Boy, you're the richest lonely man I know. The door opened softly. Claire entered with a small paper cup and a gentle smile. Time for your medicine, Mr. Carter. She didn't look at John as she helped William sit up, adjusting his pillows with practiced ease. But John watched her every move. The careful way she supported his grandfather's head. How she waited patiently when he struggled to swallow the pills. There you go, she murmured. Better. William nodded, but his eyes were on John's face. Claire, meet my grandson. The one I told you about. We met in the hallway, Claire said, finally glancing at John. Something flickered in her expression. Recognition? Disappointment? He seems nice. The pause before nice said everything. John had seen that look before, usually right before women started asking about his bank account or wanting to be seen at expensive restaurants. But Claire looked like she was judging him for something else entirely. Claire here's been taking care of me better than family, William said pointedly. Reads to me sometimes. Tells me stories about her little girl. John blinked. You have a daughter? Claire's jaw tightened slightly. Yes. Maya. She's 7. Daddy not in the picture? The question slipped out before he could stop it. Rude. Invasive. The kind of thing rich men asked when they were calculating if a woman was available. Claire's eyes went cold. No. He's not. The silence stretched uncomfortable and sharp. William looked between them like he was watching a tennis match. Well, Claire said briskly, I'll check on you again in an hour, Mr. Carter. She started toward the door. Claire, wait. William's voice was weak but insistent. Why don't you tell Johnny about that story you were reading to me? The one about the prince who forgot how to love. She paused at the door, hand on the handle. When she turned back, her eyes found John's and held them. It's a fairy tale, she said quietly. About a prince who built walls so high around his heart that he forgot what it felt like to care about anyone. Until one day, someone showed him that the strongest people are the ones brave enough to be vulnerable. John felt like she'd slapped him. How does it end? He asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Claire's smile was sad and knowing. I guess that depends on whether the prince is brave enough to tear down his own walls. She left, closing the door with a soft click. William chuckled, the sound raspy but delighted. Boy, you just got schooled by a woman who makes $12 an hour and still has more class than half your boardroom. John stared at the closed door. Something was happening to him. Something he didn't understand and couldn't control. For 35 years, he'd known exactly who he was, what he wanted, how to get it. Now a nurse with kind eyes and a 7-year-old daughter had walked into his carefully ordered world and made him question everything. She's different, he said, not sure why he was admitting it. Different how? William asked, though his knowing smile said he already knew the answer. John thought about Claire's touch on his arm. The way she'd looked at him like he was just a man, not a net worth. How she'd defended herself without apologizing for being a single mother. She's not impressed by me, he said finally. William's laugh was the strongest sound he'd made all day. Johnny, you just figured out what real attraction looks like. Congratulations. You're only about 20 years behind schedule. Over the next 3 days, John found himself doing something he'd never done before. He stayed. Not in some 5-star hotel suite. Not in his penthouse with its view of the city he owned piece by piece. He stayed in that uncomfortable plastic chair beside William's bed, watching machines measure out his grandfather's remaining time in steady beeps. He canceled meetings, ignored calls, let deals die while he sat there, learning how to just be present. And every few hours, Claire would come in. She never spoke to him unless she had to. Professional, distant. But John found himself memorizing the sound of her voice when she talked to William. The way she hummed softly while checking his four. How she always straightened his blankets just so. On the third day, William was sleeping when she entered for the evening shift change. John was staring out the window at the city lights, thinking about nothing and everything. "You don't have to stay all night," Claire said quietly, checking William's chart. "We'll call you if he dies," John finished. The words sat heavy between them. Claire's hands stilled on the clipboard. "If there's any change." John turned to look at her. Really look at her. In the soft light from the bedside lamp, he could see the exhaustion around her eyes. The way her shoulders sagged just slightly. "When do you go home?" he asked. "My shift ends at 11. She glanced at the clock. 20 more minutes. "To your daughter." Something softened in Claire's expression. "To Maya, yes. She stays with my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, when I work nights. Good woman. Makes the best tamales in the building." It was the most she'd said to him since the fairy tale comment. John felt like he'd been given a gift. "What's she like?" "Maya." Claire's whole face changed. Lit up from the inside. "She's everything. Smart as a whip. Wants to be a doctor when she grows up. Says she's going to fix everyone who's hurting." She paused, then added quietly, "She has your grandfather's optimism." They've met a few times, when I've had to bring her to work in emergencies. Maya loves old people. Says they have the best stories. Claire smiled at the memory. William told her about building his first house with his bare hands. She was fascinated. John felt a strange twist in his chest. His grandfather had shared stories with a 7-year-old that he'd never told John. Or maybe he had, and John just hadn't been listening. "Why nursing?" he asked suddenly. Claire's hands went back to organizing supplies she'd already organized twice. "Why anything? It pays the bills. Helps people. Good insurance for Maya." But there was something else there. Something she wasn't saying. "That's not the real reason." She looked up sharply, eyes flashing with irritation. "Excuse me. You light up when you talk about helping people. Same way you lit up talking about your daughter. There's a real reason." For a moment, she just stared at him. John thought she might walk out. Instead, she sank into the other chair by the window. "My mom," she said finally. "She died when I was 17. Breast cancer. We couldn't afford the good doctors, the good treatments. She spent her last months in a place like this, scared and in pain, because the nurses were overworked and the doctors barely had time to remember her name." John's chest tightened. "I swore that wouldn't happen to anyone on my watch," Claire continued. "Every patient gets treated like family. Every family gets someone who cares. It's not about the money." She looked at him then, and John felt like she was seeing straight into his soul. "Though I guess you wouldn't understand that." The words hit like a slap. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Come on." Claire's voice was tired, not angry. Just tired. "I've seen men like you before. Everything has a price. Every relationship is a transaction. You probably think I'm working some angle, trying to get close to the rich grandson." John opened his mouth to deny it, then closed it. Because wasn't that exactly what he'd thought? What he always thought? "I don't." "Yes, you do." Claire stood up, smoothing down her scrubs. "And that's fine. It's who you are. But don't pretend you understand why someone would choose a life of caring for others over making money." She was almost to the door when William's voice, weak but clear, stopped them both. "The boy's learning, Claire. Give him time." They both turned. William's eyes were open, watching them with sharp intelligence despite his condition. "Grandpa, we didn't mean to wake you," John started. "I wasn't asleep." William's smile was knowing. Hard to sleep when two people are dancing around each other like scared teenagers. Claire's cheeks flushed. "I should go. Maya's waiting." "Claire," William called as she reached for the door handle. "Tomorrow's Saturday. You said Maya wants to hear more stories." She paused. "Yes. Bring her by." This old fool's got plenty more where those came from. And maybe—" his eyes shifted to John. "Maybe Johnny here needs to learn a thing or two about what really matters." Claire looked between them, something shifting in her expression. We wouldn't want to impose." "No imposition," William said firmly. "Family's never an imposition." The word family hung in the air. John felt something crack open in his chest. When was the last time anyone had called him family? When was the last time he'd wanted them to? "Okay," Claire said softly. "We'll come by tomorrow afternoon." She left, and the room fell quiet except for the steady beeping of machines. "That woman," William said after a long moment, "is going to save your life." "What do you mean?" William's eyes were already closing, but his smile remained. "You'll see, Johnny. You'll see." That night, John sat in his empty penthouse, staring out at the city he'd conquered. For the first time in 20 years, the view felt meaningless. All he could think about was a woman who chose caring over wealth, who lit up talking about her daughter, who looked at him like he was just a man who needed to figure out how to be better. And tomorrow, he was going to meet the little girl who wanted to fix everyone who was hurting. Starting, maybe, with him. Saturday afternoon came with the kind of crisp autumn sunlight that made everything look possible. John arrived at the hospital carrying something he'd never carried before: uncertainty, and a small wrapped box that had taken him 3 hours to choose. He found William awake and alert, propped up against fresh pillows. Someone had helped him shave, and his hair was combed back neatly. "You clean up good for a dying man," John said, settling into his usual chair. William chuckled. "Claire's doing. Said I needed to look presentable for my special visitor." His eyes glinted with mischief. "Speaking of which, what's in the box?" John looked down at the carefully wrapped present in his hands. "I don't know what 7-year-old girls like." "So you bought her something? Is that wrong?" William's expression softened. "Johnny, you've got good instincts under all that armor. Trust them." Before John could respond, voices echoed in the hallway. A woman's voice he recognized, and another, higher, excited, full of energy. "Mama, is this the room? Is this where Mr. William lives?" "Remember what we talked about?" Claire's voice was gentle but firm. "Hospital voices. And it's Mr. Carter. But he said to call him Mr. William." The door opened, and John's world tilted on its axis. Maya was a tiny whirlwind of energy packed into a 7-year-old body. Her hair was done in neat braids with colorful beads that clicked when she moved. She wore a bright yellow dress and carried a small purple backpack covered in stickers. But it was her eyes that stopped John's breath. They were exactly like her mother's, warm, intelligent, completely unguarded. The kind of eyes that saw everything and judged nothing. "Mr. William!" Maya rushed to the bedside, then stopped short, taking in the machines and wires. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Do those hurt?" "Not a bit," William assured her. "They just help the doctors keep track of how I'm doing." Maya nodded seriously, then noticed John. "Are you the grandson?" Yes. I'm John." She studied him with the direct intensity only children possess. "You're bigger than I thought you'd be." "Maya," Claire warned from the doorway, but there was amusement in her voice. "It's okay," John said quickly. "She's right. I am pretty big." Maya giggled. "Mama says you build towers that touch the sky." "I do. That's so cool. Can I see one sometime?" John glanced at Claire, who was watching the interaction with careful eyes. "Maybe. If your mom says it's okay." "Mama always says okay to educational stuff." Maya turned to William. "Mr. William, I brought you something." She dug into her backpack and pulled out a hand-drawn picture. It showed a tall man in a hard hat standing next to a small house, with a little girl and a woman watching. "It's you building your first house," Maya explained proudly. "And that's me and Mama watching because we think you're super cool." William's eyes filled with tears. "It's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen." John stared at the drawing. Such a simple thing. Crayon and paper. But the care in every line, the way Maya had drawn William smiling, the little hearts floating around the scene. When was the last time anyone had made him something? Not bought, not commissioned, made. "I brought you something too," he said suddenly, holding out the wrapped box. Maya's eyes went wide. "For me?" John nodded, his throat tight. "I hope you like it." Maya took the box with reverent care, as if it were made of glass. She unwrapped it slowly, saving the paper. Inside was a small wooden music box with a ballerina that spun when wound up. "It plays Beethoven," John said awkwardly. "I thought, you seem like someone who would appreciate beautiful things." Maya wound the key and watched the ballerina spin to the delicate melody. Her face was pure wonder. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," she whispered. Then she looked up at John with those devastating, honest eyes. "Thank you." 2 words. That was all. But John felt like someone had cracked his ribs open and poured sunlight directly into his heart. Claire was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Surprise? Approval? Something else entirely? "That's very generous," she said quietly. "It's nothing," John started to say, then caught himself. It wasn't nothing. Not to Maya. Not to him, either. "Mr. William," Maya said, carefully placing the music box on the bedside table where she could see it. "Are you going to die soon?" The adults all froze. Claire started to intervene, but William held up a gentle hand. "Yes, sweetheart. Probably very soon." Maya nodded solemnly. "Are you scared?" "Sometimes," William admitted. "Mostly I'm sad that I won't get to see you grow up. Won't get to hear about all the people you're going to help." "I could write you letters," Maya said seriously. "And draw you pictures. Even after you're in heaven." John's vision blurred. He had to look away. "Would you like to hear a story?" William asked. "I was saving a special one." Maya climbed carefully into the chair beside the bed, settling in like she belonged there. "Yes, please." "Once upon a time," William began, "there was a young man who forgot how to believe in magic." John's head snapped up. William was looking directly at him. "He built a castle made of gold and glass, thinking it would protect him from getting hurt. But castles can be lonely places, especially when you're the only one living in them." Maya was listening with rapt attention. Claire had moved closer, her hand resting on her daughter's shoulder. "One day, the young man met a princess," William continued. "But she wasn't like the princesses in other stories. She didn't need rescuing. She was busy rescuing everyone else." John's pulse quickened. He could feel Claire's eyes on him. "And the princess had a little fairy for a daughter." William's voice was growing softer, but his smile was bright. "A fairy who could see magic in everything, even in castles that looked empty and cold." "What happened to them?" Maya asked, leaning forward. William's eyes moved between John and Claire. "Well, that story isn't finished yet. But I have a feeling it's going to have a very happy ending." The room fell quiet except for the soft melody of the music box, still playing. John looked at Claire and found her watching him with something new in her expression. Not suspicion or judgment. Something softer, more dangerous. Something that looked like possibility. "Mama," Maya said suddenly, "I like him." She was looking at John with complete trust, complete acceptance. The way children looked at the world before they learned to be afraid. "He has sad eyes," she continued matter-of-factly. "But I think they could be happy eyes if someone taught him how." John's breath caught. Out of the mouths of babes. Claire's hand moved to touch her daughter's hair. "Maya, sweetie, we should let Mr. William rest. Can we come back tomorrow?" Maya asked. "If Mr. William feels up to it," Claire said carefully. "I'll feel up to it," William assured her. "I want to hear about that Dr. Dream of yours." As they prepared to leave, Maya surprised everyone by walking over to John's chair. She stood on her tiptoes and whispered in his ear, "Mr. William loves you very much. And I think you love him too, even if you forgot how to show it." Then she kissed his cheek with the casual affection of a child who saw good in everyone. John sat frozen as they left, his hand touching the spot where she'd kissed him. "That little girl," William said quietly, "is going to change your life." "She already has," John whispered. And for the first time in 20 years, John Carter cried. The next week blurred together in a way John had never experienced. Every day, he found himself at the hospital earlier, staying later. And every day, Claire and Maya would visit after Maya's school. It became routine. Sacred, almost. Maya would burst through the door with stories about her day, her teachers, her friends. She'd wind up the music box and dance to Beethoven while William told stories and John watched, feeling something inside him healing piece by piece. Claire would sit quietly, working on crossword puzzles or helping Maya with homework, but John caught her watching him sometimes, studying him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. On Thursday evening, William had a bad day. The pain medication made him sleepy and confused. Maya sat beside his bed, holding his hand and humming softly, something she'd never done before, but somehow knew he needed. "You're going to be a wonderful doctor," John told her quietly. Maya looked up at him with those wise 7-year-old eyes. "Will you help me?" "Help you how?" "Get through school. Mama says it costs a lot of money to be a doctor. More money than we have." John's chest tightened. He glanced at Claire, who was pretending not to listen but had gone very still. "Maya, sweetie," Claire said carefully, "we've talked about this. We'll figure it out when the time comes." "But John has lots of money," Maya said with the brutal logic of childhood. "He could help us. Then I could fix people faster." The silence in the room was deafening. John could feel Claire's mortification, her anger. She thought this was exactly what she'd feared, her daughter asking the rich man for handouts. "Maya," Claire's voice was tight with embarrassment. "We don't ask people for money. Ever. That's not how our family works." Maya's face fell. "I'm sorry, Mama. I just thought." "It's okay, baby." Claire's voice softened, but her jaw was still rigid. "Why don't you go get some water from the fountain? Take your time." Maya nodded and slipped out of the room, sensing the adult tension she didn't understand. The moment the door closed, Claire exploded. "How dare you?" John blinked. "What?" "How dare you make my daughter think she needs your charity?" Claire's eyes blazed with fury. "Do you have any idea how hard I work to teach her that we don't need anyone's pity? That we're not projects for rich people to feel good about themselves?" "I didn't." "Yes, you did." Claire stood up, pacing the small room like a caged animal. "The expensive gift. The way you look at us like we're some kind of entertainment. Poor single mother and her cute kid, right? Something to make you feel human again." The words hit like physical blows. "That's not what this is." "Isn't it?" Claire whirled on him. "Let me guess. You'll pay for Maya's medical school. Set up a trust fund. Maybe buy us a nice house in a better neighborhood. And in return, what? A ready-made family to ease your guilt about ignoring your grandfather for years." John felt something cold and familiar wrap around his heart. The old defenses, rising like walls. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Claire's laugh was bitter. "I've seen this before, John. Rich men who think money fixes everything. Who think caring is something you can purchase." "Stop." The word came out harder than he intended. "The truth hurts, doesn't it?" Claire's voice dropped to a whisper, but it cut deeper than shouting. "You can't buy love, John. You can't buy a family. And you sure as hell can't buy forgiveness for 20 years of neglect." Something inside John snapped. "You're right," he said quietly. Too quietly. "I can't buy love. I learned that lesson a long time ago." He stood up, straightening his suit jacket with mechanical precision, the armor sliding back into place. "I apologize for any confusion about my intentions. I'll make sure there are no further misunderstandings." Claire's anger faltered at the change in his tone. The way he'd gone from warm to Arctic in seconds. "John, I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. And you're absolutely right." He looked at her with the same cold politeness he used in boardrooms. "Thank you for the reality check." William's voice, weak but urgent, cut through the tension. "Johnny, don't." John turned to his grandfather, who was watching the scene with heartbroken eyes. "Don't what, Grandpa? Don't finally listen to the truth? Don't accept that some things can't be fixed with money? Don't run," William said simply. "Not from this. Not from them. I'm not running. I'm being realistic." John moved toward the door. "Claire's right. I don't belong here." "Yes, you do." William's voice was getting weaker, but more desperate. "Johnny, please. Don't make the same mistake I did." John stopped. "What mistake?" William's eyes filled with tears. "I never told you about your grandmother, did I? About how I lost her." The room went dead quiet. "We were young. I was working construction, barely making ends meet. She was a teacher from a good family. Her parents thought she was too good for me." William's voice cracked. "And maybe they were right. When things got hard, when her father threatened to cut her off if she married me, I walked away. Told myself I was protecting her." John felt the floor shifting under his feet. "She married someone else 6 months later. Someone appropriate. I spent the next 40 years building a business empire, thinking success would prove I was good enough. But you know what I proved instead?" John couldn't speak. "I proved I was a coward. That I'd rather be alone and successful than risk being vulnerable and happy." William looked directly at John. "Don't be me, Johnny. Don't spend your life wondering what if." The door opened softly. Maya peeked in, holding a paper cup of water. "Is everyone okay? You all look sad." Claire immediately wiped her eyes and smiled. "We're fine, baby. Just talking." Maya walked over to John, studying his face with that unnerving child's intuition. "Are you leaving?" John looked down at her, this little girl who'd kissed his cheek and called his eyes sad but potentially happy. This child who dreamed of healing people and somehow thought he was worth saving. He started, then stopped. The words felt like glass in his throat. Maya set down her water cup and took his hand. Her tiny fingers wrapped around his like they belonged there. "In school, we learned about butterflies," she said seriously. "They have to break out of their cocoon to fly. But breaking out is scary and hard. Sometimes they want to stay inside where it's safe." She looked up at him with those devastating, honest eyes. "But if they don't break out, they never get to see how beautiful they are." John's vision blurred. This 7-year-old had just seen straight through to his soul and offered him the key to his own cage. He looked at Claire, who was watching the exchange with tears streaming down her face. All her anger had melted into something softer, more dangerous. Something that looked like understanding. "I'm scared," he admitted, the words barely a whisper. Maya squeezed his hand. "That's okay. Mama says being scared means you're about to do something brave." John looked at Claire. Really looked at her. Saw past his own fears and insecurities to the woman who'd built a life of caring for others. Who'd raised a daughter with more wisdom than most adults possessed. Who'd looked at a dying old man and chosen to give him joy in his final days. Who'd looked at John and seen not a net worth, but a man who needed healing. "I'm sorry," he said to Claire. "You're right about everything. I was trying to buy my way into something real. But maybe I could learn to earn it instead." Claire's smile was watery but genuine. "Maybe you could." William was beaming from his hospital bed, despite his obvious exhaustion. "Now that's the Johnny I remember." Maya clapped her hands in delight. "Does this mean you're staying?" John looked around the room, at the dying grandfather who'd never stopped believing in him, the woman who'd challenged him to be better, and the little girl who'd taught him what courage really meant. For the first time in his life, staying felt like the bravest thing he could do. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm staying." 3 days later, everything changed. John was in the middle of a conference call when his phone rang. Claire's name on the screen made his stomach drop. She never called during her shift unless something was wrong. "John!" Her voice was shaky, barely holding together. "You need to come. Now." He was out the door before she finished the sentence. The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights and terror. John's hands shook on the steering wheel as he tried not to think about what he might find. William had been getting weaker, sleeping more, but he'd seemed stable yesterday when John left. Yesterday, when Maya had shown him her latest drawing, the three of them together under a rainbow, with William smiling from a cloud above them. John found Claire in the hallway outside William's room, still in her scrubs but off duty, her face streaked with tears. "What happened?" he asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "His heart," Claire whispered. "It stopped for almost 3 minutes. They got him back, but—" She couldn't finish. Through the window, John could see William surrounded by machines, tubes running down his throat, his chest rising and falling mechanically. "Is he unconscious? The doctors don't think he's going to wake up." Claire's voice broke. "I'm so sorry, John. I know you two were just starting to." "Where's Maya?" "At school. She doesn't know yet." Claire wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I didn't know how to tell her. She was so excited about showing him her new drawing tonight." John stared through the window at his grandfather's still form. After all these years of walls and distance, they'd had exactly 1 week. 7 days of stories and laughter and tentative reconciliation. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "Can I?" He gestured toward the door. Claire nodded. "The doctor said to talk to him. Sometimes they can hear." John entered the room on unsteady legs. The beeping of machines filled the silence that had once been filled with William's voice, his laughter, his wisdom. He sat in the familiar plastic chair and took his grandfather's hand. It was cold, so cold. "I'm here, Grandpa," he whispered. "I'm here, and I'm not leaving." But even as he said it, John felt the familiar walls starting to rebuild themselves. The voice in his head that had protected him for so long began its cruel whisper. "This is why you don't get attached. This is why you stay alone. Everyone leaves. Everyone dies. Better to feel nothing than to feel this." Hours passed. Claire brought him coffee he didn't drink and sandwiches he couldn't eat. Maya came after school, her small face crumbling when she saw William surrounded by machines. "Is Mr. William sleeping?" she asked in a tiny voice. Claire knelt beside her daughter, choosing her words carefully. "He's very sick, baby. The doctors are doing everything they can, but he might go to heaven," Maya finished, her eyes filling with tears. "Yes." Maya walked slowly to the bedside and climbed into the chair next to John. She placed her small hand over both of theirs. "Mr. William," she whispered. "It's Maya. I brought you a new picture, but I'll save it for when you wake up, okay?" She turned to John, her face streaked with tears. "Will you read to him? He always likes stories." John's throat was too tight to speak, but he nodded. Maya handed him a book from her backpack, a collection of fairy tales they'd been reading together. His voice cracked as he read about brave princes and kind princesses, about magic and happy endings that felt like lies in the sterile hospital room. As evening fell, the doctor came in with news that shattered John's fragile hope. "I'm sorry," Dr. Martinez said gently. "The lack of oxygen caused significant brain damage. Even if he survives, he won't be the man you remember. I think it's time to consider." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Maya looked up at the adults with frightened eyes. "What does that mean?" Claire picked up her daughter, holding her close. "It means Mr. William is ready to go to heaven, sweetheart." "No!" Maya's cry was heartbroken, raw. "He can't go." He didn't finish his story. "He didn't see me become a doctor." John felt something shatter inside his chest. The little girl who'd taught him about courage was sobbing in her mother's arms, and there was nothing he could do. Nothing his money could fix. Nothing his power could change. Death was the one force that didn't negotiate. That night, after Maya had finally cried herself to sleep in Claire's arms and been taken home by the neighbor, John sat alone with William. The machines breathed for him, kept his heart beating, but the man who'd raised him was already gone. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the darkness. "I'm sorry I wasted so much time. I'm sorry I was scared. I'm sorry I'm still scared." The machines beeped their mechanical rhythm. No answer came. John's phone had been buzzing all day. Calls from his office, messages about deals and meetings, and all the things that had once seemed important. He turned it off and sat in the darkness, holding his grandfather's cold hand. Around midnight, Claire appeared in the doorway. She looked exhausted, her eyes red from crying. "You should go home," she said softly. "Get some sleep. I can't leave him." Claire entered the room and sat in the chair across from him. For a long time, they sat in silence, two people keeping vigil over the man who'd brought them together. "Maya keeps asking if we can fix him," Claire said finally. "I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth. That sometimes people can't be fixed." Claire looked at him sharply. "Is that what you really believe?" John stared at William's still face. "I don't know what I believe anymore." "You believe in love," Claire said quietly. "William showed you that. Maya showed you that. You felt it, even if you're scared of it. And look where it got me." John's voice was hollow. "I let myself care, and now I'm losing the only family I had left." "You're not losing him," Claire said fiercely. "Love doesn't die, John. It just changes form." That's pretty talk for someone who's about to lose the man who was a grandfather to her daughter. The words came out crueler than he intended, but Claire just looked sad, not angry. "You're doing it again," she said. "Building walls. Pushing people away so it hurts less. Maybe I should. Maybe I was right the first time. Maybe caring is just setting yourself up for pain." Claire stood up, and for a moment John thought she was leaving. Instead, she moved to stand beside William's bed. "When my mother was dying," she said softly, "I begged God to take the pain away, to make me stop caring so it wouldn't hurt so much. You know what I realized?" John waited. The pain was proof of how much I loved her. The hurt was just love with nowhere to go. She looked at John with tears in her eyes. "Don't waste that love, John. Don't let fear make you smaller than you are." But John was already retreating, already rebuilding the fortress that had protected him for so long. "Maybe you should take Maya and go," he said coldly. "This isn't your family. These aren't your people." Claire recoiled like he'd slapped her. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" "You said it yourself. I can't buy a family. Well, I can't keep one either. So maybe it's better if we all just accept reality." For a moment, Claire just stared at him. Then she nodded, her face closing off. "Fine," she said quietly. "If that's what you want." She walked toward the door, then paused. "But you're wrong about one thing, John. William didn't love you because you were family. You were family because he loved you. There's a difference." She left, and John was alone again with the machines and the silence and the terrible weight of his own fear. Outside the window, dawn was breaking over the city he'd conquered. But inside the hospital room, everything felt like ending. Have you ever been so afraid of losing someone that you pushed them away first? Sometimes we hurt the people we love most because we're scared of being hurt ourselves. What do you think? Is it better to love and lose, or never love at all? Share your thoughts in the comments. John spent the next day in his penthouse, staring out at the city he'd built his empire upon. The silence felt different now. Not peaceful, just empty. The way it had always been empty, before Claire and Maya had shown him what fullness could feel like. His phone rang constantly. Business calls he ignored. But when his assistant's name appeared on the screen for the 10th time, he finally answered. "What?" "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a little girl here to see you. She says her name is Maya and that it's about Mr. William." John's heart stopped. "Put her on." There was a pause. Then Maya's small voice came through the phone, thick with tears. "John, I ran away from school. I need to see Mr. William, but Mama's at work and Mrs. Rodriguez is sleeping and I don't know what to do." "Maya, where are you exactly?" "In your big building." The nice lady at the desk gave me juice and cookies, but I need to go to the hospital. Mr. William is lonely. John was already reaching for his keys. Stay right there. I'm coming down. He found Maya in his office lobby, tiny in one of the leather chairs, her school backpack beside her and tears streaking her cheeks. She looked up when she saw him, and the trust in her eyes nearly broke him. I had to come, she said simply. Mr. William needs us. Maya, how did you even get here? I remembered you said your name was on the big building, and I saved my lunch money for the bus. She looked up at him with those devastating, honest eyes. Are you still mad at Mama? John knelt in front of her chair, his heart breaking all over again. I'm not mad at your mama, sweetheart. Then why did you leave? Why didn't you come back? The question hung in the air between them. How could he explain fear to a 7-year-old? How could he tell her that love scared him more than any business deal ever had? Sometimes grown-ups get scared, he said finally. And when we're scared, we do stupid things. Maya nodded seriously. Like when I hid under my bed when Mama told me we had to move apartments. I was scared of the new place, so I tried to stay in the old place where I felt safe. Exactly like that. But you know what Mama told me? What? She said that brave doesn't mean you're not scared. Brave means you do the right thing even when you're scared. Maya's voice got smaller. Mr. William is scared too. I can tell. He needs his family with him. John felt something crack open in his chest. This little girl, who'd taken a bus across the city because she thought an old man was lonely, was teaching him about courage. Again. You're right, he said quietly. He does need his family. All of his family, Maya said pointedly. You and me and Mama. We're all his family now. They were. Somehow, in the space of 2 weeks, they'd become a family. Not through blood or law or contracts, but through choice. Through love. And John had been about to throw it all away because he was terrified of losing it. Come on, he said, standing up and offering Maya his hand. Let's go see Mr. William. The drive to the hospital was quiet except for Maya's occasional sniffles. John's hands shook on the steering wheel as he thought about facing Claire again. About the cruel things he'd said. About the look in her eyes when he'd told her to leave. They found Claire in the hallway outside William's room, and the confrontation was immediate. Maya! Claire rushed toward them, relief and anger warring in her voice. Do you have any idea how scared I was? The school called. Mrs. Rodriguez didn't know where you were. I'm sorry, Mama, Maya said in a small voice. But Mr. William needed us, and you were working, and you could have been hurt. You could have. Claire stopped, finally noticing John standing behind her daughter. Her face went cold. I should have known. Claire, she came to my office on her own. I didn't. Of course she did. Because you filled her head with ideas about being family, and then you disappeared. Claire's voice was controlled, professional, but John could see the hurt underneath. Maya, we're going home. No. Maya stepped between them, her small face fierce with determination. We can't leave Mr. William. He's all alone in there. Maya! Please, Mama. He's scared and lonely and he needs us. All of us. Maya looked up at Claire with tears in her eyes. You always tell me that when someone we love is hurting, we don't abandon them. Even when it's hard. Even when we're scared. Claire's resolve cracked. Baby, it's complicated. No, it's not. Maya turned to John, her voice strong despite her tears. Tell Mama you're sorry. Tell her you didn't mean those mean things you said. Tell her we're still family. John looked at Claire, seeing the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her shoulders carried the weight of trying to protect her daughter from disappointment. From him. I was scared, he said quietly. Terrified, actually. Of losing William, of losing you too, of caring so much that it hurt. So I did what I always do. I pushed everyone away first. Claire's expression softened slightly, but she didn't speak. You were right about everything, John continued. I don't know how to be family. I don't know how to love without trying to control or fix or buy my way in. But I want to learn. If you'll let me. John. I love him, John's voice cracked. I love William, and I love Maya, and I. He stopped, the words too big, too dangerous. But Maya was nodding encouragingly, and somehow that gave him courage. And I love you, Claire. Not because you need saving, because you don't. Not because I want to fix your life, because it's not broken. I love you because you're brave and strong and kind, and because you make me want to be better than I am. Tears were streaming down Claire's face now. You hurt me, she whispered. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They stood in the hospital hallway, three people bound together by love and loss and fear, while around them life continued its relentless pace. Can we please just go see Mr. William now? Maya asked in a small voice. I think he's waiting for us. Claire wiped her eyes and nodded. Okay, baby. Let's go see Mr. William. They entered the room together. William looked smaller than ever, surrounded by machines, but his eyes were open, alert. And when he saw the three of them walk in together, his smile was radiant. There's my family, he whispered, his voice barely audible but full of joy. Maya climbed into the chair beside him and took his hand. We're all here, Mr. William. Just like you wanted. William's eyes found John's. You came back. I'm sorry I left. You came back, William repeated. That's what matters. Claire moved to the other side of the bed, taking William's other hand. For a moment, they were all connected. The dying grandfather, the scared grandson, the protective mother, and the wise little girl who'd somehow brought them all together. I have something to tell you all, William said, his voice growing stronger. The doctors. They think I might have a few more days. Maybe a week. That's wonderful, Claire said, squeezing his hand. But I need you to promise me something. William looked at each of them in turn. When I'm gone, don't let this end. What we have here, this family we've made, it's worth fighting for. We promise, Maya said solemnly. William's eyes moved to John. And you, Johnny. No more running. No more walls. You've got something precious here. Don't waste it. John nodded, his throat too tight for words. Good. William settled back against his pillows, looking more at peace than John had ever seen him. Now, Maya, I believe you had a new picture to show me? As Maya dug through her backpack, chattering excitedly about her drawing, John caught Claire's eye. She was watching him with something new in her expression. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the possibility of it. Maybe that was enough to start with. Maybe that was all anyone could ask for. A chance to try again, to do better, to love without fear. For the first time in days, John allowed himself to hope. William lived for 6 more days. 6 days of stories and laughter and quiet moments. 6 days of Maya reading to him from her favorite books, of Claire making sure he was comfortable, of John finally learning how to just sit and be present with someone he loved. On the last night, they all knew. There was something in the air, a stillness that spoke of endings and beginnings all at once. Maya had fallen asleep in the chair beside William's bed, her small hand still holding his. Claire sat on the other side, humming softly, the same tune Maya had hummed that first day when William was confused and scared. John stood by the window, watching the city lights twinkle in the darkness. The same view that had once felt like conquest now just felt like lights. Pretty, but meaningless without people to share them with. Johnny, William's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried clearly in the quiet room. John turned, moving quickly to his grandfather's bedside. William's eyes were bright despite his weakness, filled with a peace John had never seen before. I need to tell you something, William said, his words careful and slow. About your parents. About the accident. John's breath caught. They'd never really talked about that night. About the rain and the cliff road and how everything had changed when John was 16. Grandpa, you don't have to. Yes, I do. William's grip on Maya's hand tightened slightly, as if drawing strength from the sleeping child. Your parents. They died loving each other. Completely. Even knowing how dangerous it was to drive that night, they went anyway because your father had promised your mother they'd make it to your school play. John felt his throat close up. They could have stayed home, could have played it safe. But love made them brave, Johnny. Love made them choose risk over safety, hope over fear. William's eyes found John's in the dim light. Don't you dare dishonor their memory by choosing fear. Tears were streaming down John's face now. I don't know how to do this, Grandpa. I don't know how to love without being terrified of losing everything. William smiled, the expression radiant despite his exhaustion. Look around you, boy. Look at what you've already got. John looked at Maya, sleeping peacefully with complete trust that the adults would keep her safe. At Claire, who'd given up her evening to sit vigil with a dying old man because that's who she was, someone who showed up when it mattered. At the hospital room that had somehow become home because they were all in it together. The secret, William whispered, isn't learning not to be afraid. The secret is learning that love is worth the fear. William's eyes began to flutter closed, but he fought to stay awake a little longer. Claire, he said softly. Claire looked up from her quiet humming, tears already in her eyes because she knew, the way nurses always know. Thank you, William said simply, for giving an old fool the chance to feel like family again. For sharing your daughter with me. For helping my grandson remember how to have a heart. Claire leaned forward and kissed his forehead gently. Thank you for loving us both. Maya, William whispered, even though the little girl was sleeping. As if she could hear him even in dreams, Maya's eyes fluttered open. She looked at William with the clarity that sometimes comes right before goodbye. Are you going now, Mr. William? She asked quietly. Soon, sweetheart. Maya nodded solemnly. Will you tell my grandma I said hi? She's been in heaven for a long time. I bet she's lonely too. William's smile was radiant. I'll tell her. And Maya, you keep being a doctor, okay? The world needs people who know how to fix hearts. I will, Maya promised. And I'll take care of John and Mama. They need lots of fixing. Despite everything, William chuckled. Yes, they do. He turned his attention back to John, who was struggling not to fall apart completely. I have a gift for you, William said. In the drawer of my bedside table at home. A letter I wrote years ago but never had the courage to give you. It explains everything. Why I let you pull away after your parents died. Why I didn't fight harder to keep you close. John nodded, unable to speak. But the most important thing it says is this. I am proud of the man you became, even if you became him the hard way. And I believe, I know, that you're brave enough to let yourself be loved. The machines around them beeped steadily, measuring out precious seconds. Take care of each other, William said, his voice getting fainter. Be family. Not because you have to, but because you choose to. Every single day. John took William's other hand, the one Maya wasn't holding, feeling how fragile and precious life was. I love you, Grandpa. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. I love you too, Johnny. I always have. William's breathing grew slower, more peaceful. Claire moved closer, taking John's free hand in hers. Maya shifted in her chair but didn't wake, somehow knowing that her presence was enough. For a long moment, they sat in perfect silence. For people connected by love and loss and the brave choice to stay vulnerable even when it hurt. Then, so quietly that John almost missed it, William whispered, Tell them the story had a happy ending after all. And with that, he was gone. The machines registered what their hearts already knew, but nobody moved to turn them off. Not yet. They sat in the quiet, holding hands, holding William's memory, holding each other. What do we do now? John asked finally, his voice broken. Maya stirred, opening her eyes to look around the room. She seemed to understand immediately what had happened, with that uncanny wisdom children sometimes possess. Now we take care of each other, she said simply, echoing William's words. Like he said. Like family. Claire squeezed John's hand. She's right. We take care of each other. John looked at them, This woman who'd taught him that strength came in many forms. This little girl who'd shown him that love was always worth the risk. His family. Not through blood or marriage or legal documents, but through choice. Through showing up. Through staying, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. "Okay," he said, his voice steady for the first time in days. "Let's take care of each other." Later, after the doctors had come and gone, after the difficult conversations and paperwork and all the brutal practicalities of death, they walked out of the hospital together. The sun was rising over the city, painting everything in shades of gold and hope. Maya walked between John and Claire, holding both their hands, chattering about the breakfast she wanted and the story she was going to write about Mr. William for her class. "Are you really going to help me become a doctor?" she asked John as they reached his car. John looked at Claire, who nodded with a small smile. "Permission. Trust. The beginning of something real." "If that's what you want," John said. "But not because I'm trying to buy your love or fix your life. Because I believe in you. Because that's what family does." Maya grinned up at him. "I know. Mr. William explained it to me. He said love isn't about the money you spend. It's about the time you give." From the mouths of babes, echoing the wisdom of a man who'd learned life's most important lessons almost too late. As they drove through the awakening city, John realized something that would have amazed him just 3 weeks ago. He wasn't afraid anymore. Not of loving them, not of losing them, not of the 1,000 ways that caring about people made you vulnerable. Because William had been right. Love was worth the fear. Love was worth everything. And for the first time in his life, John Carter was rich in all the ways that actually mattered. What do you think makes a family? Is it blood, or choice, or something else entirely? Have you ever found family in unexpected places? Tell us about it in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. 1 year later, John stood in the same hospital where he'd learned to love. But this time, he wasn't visiting someone who was dying. He was here for a beginning. The pediatric wing gleamed with fresh paint and new equipment. A bronze plaque by the entrance read, "The William Carter Children's Medical Center, where every child matters." "It's perfect," Claire said, adjusting her white coat. Today was her first day as head of pediatric nursing, a position John had created specifically for her talents. Not as charity, but as recognition of her skills and dedication. Maya, now 8 and gap-toothed from losing her first tooth, ran ahead of them into the bright, cheerful waiting room. "Look," she called excitedly. "The fish tank you promised. And books. And toys." The waiting room was designed to feel less like a hospital and more like a place of hope. Soft colors, natural light, comfortable seating for families who might be spending long days here. "Mr. William would love this," Maya said, pressing her nose against the fish tank glass. "He would," John agreed, his wedding ring catching the light as he took Claire's hand. He always said the best buildings are the ones that help people. They'd been married 6 months now, in a small ceremony in William's garden. Maya had been the flower girl and ring bearer both, insisting that she had to have 2 important jobs. Claire had worn her grandmother's dress, and John had cried when she walked down the makeshift aisle between the roses William had planted. The house they lived in now wasn't John's sterile penthouse or Claire's cramped apartment. It was William's house, where John had learned to make pancakes and Maya had a workshop where she could practice being a doctor on her stuffed animals. Some mornings, John would find himself standing in the kitchen where William had taught him about love, and he'd swear he could feel his grandfather's presence. Not sad or ghostly, but warm and approving, like a hand on his shoulder saying well done. "Daddy!" Maya called, using the name she'd started calling him a month after the wedding. It never failed to make his heart skip. "Can I see my room now?" They'd set up a small office for Maya in the children's wing. Not really hers, of course, but she liked to pretend. It had a tiny desk where she could do homework while Claire worked, and a bookshelf full of medical textbooks written for children. Dr. Maya's office, as the nursing staff had started calling it, was Maya's favorite place in the world. "Look what I brought," Maya said, carefully unpacking her backpack. She pulled out a framed picture, one of her drawings, but more sophisticated now that she was older. It showed 4 figures, a tall man, a woman, a little girl, and a translucent figure of an older man watching over them all, smiling. She placed it carefully on her little desk. Now Mr. William can watch me learn to be a doctor. John knelt beside her, his throat tight with emotion. He's very proud of you, you know. I know. I can feel him sometimes. When I'm being especially brave or especially kind. It's like he's cheering me on. Claire joined them, wrapping her arms around her family. He is cheering you on. Both of you. The first patients would arrive tomorrow. Children with fears and pain and parents with worry and hope. They would find healing here, not just from medicine but from love. From people who saw each child as someone's whole world. Are you ready for tomorrow? John asked Claire. She smiled, the expression that had first made him believe in magic. Are you kidding? I've been ready my whole life. That evening, they sat in William's garden as the sun set behind the trees he'd planted. Maya was inside, carefully arranging her doctor supplies for the next day, humming the melody from her music box. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd never met? Claire asked, her head on John's shoulder. Every day, John admitted. And every day I'm grateful we did. Even with all the pain. Losing William, nearly losing each other. John thought about it seriously. Especially because of the pain. The pain proved how much love we had. How much love we were capable of. Claire lifted her head to look at him. Listen to you, getting all philosophical. Maya's been teaching me. She says pain is just love that needs a new place to live. Smart girl. She gets it from her mother. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, children to heal, fears to comfort, a future to build together. But tonight, they were exactly where they belonged. John. Claire's voice was soft in the darkness. I love you. Not the man you used to be, not the man you're trying to become. The man you are right now, in this moment. I love you too. All of you. This whole beautiful, complicated, perfect life we've built. From inside the house came the sound of Maya's laughter, probably playing with the cat they'd adopted last month, a gray tabby she'd named Hope. John Carter, who had once believed that love was weakness, now knew it was the strongest force in the universe. Strong enough to break down walls, brave enough to risk everything, patient enough to wait for the right moment to bloom. And as the first star appeared in the sky above William's garden, John made the same wish he made every night. Thank you for teaching me how to love. Thank you for bringing me home. Somewhere in the evening breeze, he could have sworn he heard his grandfather's voice. You're welcome, Johnny. You're welcome. The music box melody drifted from Maya's window, mixing with Claire's soft humming and the rustle of leaves in the trees William had planted. It was the sound of family, of love that had survived loss and grown stronger for it. It was the sound of forever. What's the greatest lesson someone has taught you about love? Sometimes the people we think we're helping end up being the ones who save us. If this story touched your heart, drop a comment about a time when unexpected love changed your life. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters. It's never money or success, it's the people we choose to love and who choose to love us back.